Good morning. My name is Sophie Twarkowski, and I will be assisting in this morning's service. I use the pronouns she and hers. Welcome to Unitarian Society of New Haven on this beautiful, brisk fall day. The colorful rhythm of nature, the dramatic seasonal changes that we experience in New England at this time of the year help us think about the transitions that we navigate in our professional and personal lives, the challenges, the surprises, and the new opportunities. This morning, I extend a welcome to all. If you are visiting for the first time, or if you've been attending for months or years, we welcome you. We are glad that you've chosen this morning and set aside the time to be with us. We come together today, putting away our worries for an hour, to be renewed, supported, and challenged. We come into this place, a sanctuary that is strengthened by the diversity of thought, orientation, and lifestyle, a community committed to equity and social justice, a beacon of hope. We bring all that we are to this moment, this place, this beloved community, knowing that our whole selves are welcome here. I am especially pleased to welcome home to our pulpit this morning the Reverend Kathleen McTigue, Minister Emerita. Welcome, Kathleen. Before we join together to participate in today's service, I have a few announcements. We invite visitors who are with us this morning to stay for coffee or tea after the service. There is a welcome table in the rear of the sanctuary, and members of our Connections team will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The 7th and 8th grade affirmation class invites all of us to visit their snack table after the service. They are raising money for their UU heritage trip to Boston this spring. The items won't be individually priced, but there will be a basket for donations, so please support them in this fundraising effort. A few reminders: the first 5 pews, again near the piano, are a designated space for persons who choose to wear masks. Masks are optional in the sanctuary. A designated space with age-appropriate materials has been provided for children in the rear of the sanctuary so that families with young children can fully participate in our service. Finally, if you haven't already, please silence your devices as we take a calming, deep breath and settle into Sunday service. We hold space in the beginning of our service every week to remember that among us, there are always some experiencing difficulties, as well as others celebrating a special joy. This morning, we have a sorrow and a joy to share. Mark Eisenberg sadly announces that his brother Scott passed away on November 6th. We extend our sympathy to the Eisenberg family. Kathleen McTigue and Nick Neihart share the joy that their granddaughter, Lenora Marie Perry, was born July 26th to Sam Neihart and Bree Perry. Sam, Bree, and baby Lenny live in Chicago, and the proud grandparents have already been out there 4 times to visit since July. Welcome to the grandparent tribe. We hold it all in our community of caring, knowing that those joys and sorrows of which we are made aware are only a fraction of our collective experience. We recognize that we are living in a world impacted by war, illness, food insecurity, climate change, immigrant and refugee scapegoating, and political division. We take this moment to remember and to support each other near and far, within our community and beyond our walls. We are a caring congregation that generally gives and receives support in times of joy, sorrow, and transition. Pastoral support is offered through our minister, Reverend Stephen, our intern minister, Sonny McMillan, our pastoral care associates, and members of the USNH community. If you or someone you know could use support, please contact the USNH office. And now Bobby Pace, USNH President, will share information about today's special offering that will go toward the Ministerial Internship Fund. Bobby will be followed by Sharon McBlain and Tanisha Drummonds, who will highlight the waiver literacy program and the holiday drive.
Thanks, Sophie. Good morning. I'm Bobby Pace, your USNH Board President, and my pronouns are she and her. I especially want to welcome Kathleen McTigue back to our pulpit today. And as Sophie mentioned, our offering this morning will go towards the Kathleen McTigue Internship Fund. This was established last year when USNH honored Reverend McTigue with Emerita status after her 21 years with us as our minister. This fund supports current and future ministerial interns at USNH. Sunny McMillan is our current intern and has benefited from this fund herself. We have benefited from having Sunny now for going on 2 years. We are proud to be currently a teaching congregation, and your gifts today will enable us to continue this vital program and support future Unitarian Universalist ministers. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Sharon McBlain, and my pronouns are she and her. Kathleen, it is so good to have you here today. And I'm going to start out with Kathleen was a witness to the creation of the Waverly USNH partnership, which began a little over 30 years ago. Remember the first holiday party at USNH? A school bus arrived in front of the steps at USNH. Then children of all ages poured out of the bus. They were welcomed with hugs at the doors by John Pollock and Ray Zelensky. Mercedes, the founder of the Waverly Youth Program, and her teenage daughter, Tanisha, were first out of the bus and were clearly in charge. In a few weeks, on December 21st, the bus will again arrive, but now the parents will be the kids you knew, and Kathleen, and children and grandchildren that emerge will be theirs. With the money we collect at USNH after the upcoming Sunday services, Tanisha once again will purchase gifts worth about $20 for each child, and there will be Stop and Shop cards that will be gifted to the teenagers and families. Santa will make an entrance, gifts will be organized on the stage, and each child will make their selection. In the past few years, thanks to some USNH knitters, a child will select a hand-knitted hat off the tree. When I think of USNH Waverly Partnership, it brings to life the quote I love, "It takes a village to raise a child." Tanisha?
Good morning, everyone. I was so prepared to give this great speech about the election. I was just really prepared. I really stood out there on that Tuesday morning getting Waverly residents from Waverly over to the school, Bernard School, to vote. I had over probably 10 families to come out with me in my car to get there to do their voting, and the rest arrived throughout the day as well. I was proud. Everyone was proud that we were making a difference. I had families who never voted before come out, so it made me feel like a proud mom that I am, but I just knew that things would turn around, but that's for another story now. I just stopped watching the news lately just to keep my peace. But I know that the holidays are something, thank God it came right after the election, because it's something to keep me at peace, something to do for the kids, and with your generosity, we make it happen. Kathleen, thank you for always being there. I respect you so much. She's such a sweet person, guys. I can't wait to listen to her because her voice soothes me. But other than that, it's a full house, and I love seeing USNH like this. This is so peaceful for me. But thanks again for having me always, and always sharing your hearts and love and presence with me, and just being the people that you are. Waverly community, it was never broken, 30 years. So we always said, whatever's not broke, don't fix it. It's 30 years plus with you, and I enjoy every moment of it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. They were supposed to ask you at the end of all that to please give generously to the Waverly Partnership Christmas celebration, holiday celebration, right? It takes a village to do a worship service, too, you know? Good morning. Good morning, good morning. We honor the strength we find when many hearts and minds join as one, drawn on by a vision of how we yet may live in a world of joy and brokenness. We honor the dance of change in which we move, life and death tied together, turning seasons, sun and shade, each with their gifts. This is our beloved community. By its light, we honor the holiness within us, the holiness of human touch, and the holiness of our world. Let us join in worship. Please join me in singing our first hymn, 188. You probably don't need the words, but you're welcome to look them up if you want to. Come, come, whoever you are. And let's do it once with accompaniment and then maybe do a round. Oh, great. You do it the way you planned then. You anticipated. Get us started. Sing it once, will you, please? From here? Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshiper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Please be seated, my friends. My name is Jesse Grice, and I'm the Director of Lifespan Religious Education here. My pronouns are he and him, and I have a story to share with you. It was about a month ago that my family traveled down to visit my in-laws and friends in Costa Rica, and we rented the worst car that has ever been driven by a human being. Boy, was the deal cheap. I got to my in-laws' house, and we drove the car off the lot straight up to the in-laws' house. We stopped and made a few purchases to stock up their fridges and their pantries. We had gone down there to help, to heal, and I came out to start the car on the second day when we were about to go do more good works and found that the battery was dead. The battery cable had actually popped off the battery. There was not a Phillips head screwdriver to be found anywhere, so using a little bit of rock and then a coin, I managed to get the cable reconnected, and we drove this car off. And moving into an area that I hadn't been to in many, many years, I decided to use the GPS. And the GPS took us to Bagaces on these tiny little roads that rode through some of the mountains that were left by the forming volcanoes millions of years ago. We took a right turn onto this road that was gravel and dirt, full of potholes, and I came around a curve that was next to a stream, that was next to a small waterfall, and saw a hill that looked a little bit more like a wall. We started up the hill, and bit by bit, I realized third gear wasn't going to cut it. Down to second gear, that wasn't going to cut it. Down to first gear, and the motor sputtered and died. We were halfway up this hill, and then the car started sliding backwards down the gravel hill. The brakes did nothing. And I had a moment of sheer and utter metaphysical surrender. This is it. Directly behind us was the creek bed, the waterfall. And then there was this moment where my mind kind of went, and all these thoughts came in at once. It was a multiverse of thought that happened all at once as facing mortality with my family there next to me. The first thought that I had was about turtle babies. We had been to Tortuguero, and we had seen the babies, turtles, coming out of their shells. The mother turtles lay their eggs way, way up on the beach, far away from the ocean to make sure that the incoming waves don't damage the eggs at all. But when these turtle babies emerge from their eggs, they have an instinct using the moon, and I found out later, using electromagnetism to draw them towards the ocean. But their first run is horrible. They come out of their eggs and they're about this big. And they have to get past all of the beach plants, the vines, the driftwood, the shells, the predators. And when we saw these turtles, there was a guide that was there on the beach, and as much as the people there observing this wanted to just pick them up and carry them to the water, our guide said, no, don't touch them. This journey is the most important journey of their lives, because as they are crawling along the sand towards the ocean, they actually are tuning their internal clocks to the electromagnetism of that particular beach, in this case Tortuguero, on the Caribbean coast. And it's that process of going through the sand, of getting held up by vines, of getting trapped by driftwood, that they dig their faces into the sand and find themselves attuned to the electromagnetism of that beach, which is unique. It is a unique electromagnetic signature in the world, and it's what they use when they are several thousand miles away to guide them back to that same beach when they start laying eggs about 25 years into their life cycle. Good thing to be thinking about while you're sliding backwards down a hill. I also thought about the reason we had come to Costa Rica in the first place, my mother-in-law's house, which in climate change has been experiencing flooding. 3 times the rivers, the water runoff have come in and through her house. And through the efforts of friends and neighbors and family, we came together to help find a way to redirect those waters, the rainwater around her house, so that now there's a trench that redirects the water away from it. Grounding, redirection. Finally, I had this thought at the same time of a while back, years ago, when Cedro had a choking incident. And when he was choking, the first aid training that I had kicked in, and I was able to clear his airway. So here I was, sliding backwards down this hill, and 3 things came to me that still are with me now when we talk about resilience, when we talk about incredibly difficult moments. I thought about redirection, I thought about basic grounding, and I thought about my experience and my base and my training. Wait a minute, I know how to drive. Wait a minute, I know how to redirect a vehicle. So I grounded myself in that moment and was able to use the steering wheel to guide the car backwards down the road and around the curve, and to turn the motor on again. And don't tell the rental company this, but at about 4,000 RPMs in first gear, we took that hill. We made it over the top. We had a great visit. But again, my mantra, and my mantra for us today in this space, is grounding, redirection, and remember your skills. Remember what you've been trained in. Remember what you're good at. It was almost a year ago that Amanda Gorman blessed us with the poem, "The Hill We Climb." My friends, we've got another hill to climb. So I'll leave you with one line from that poem. She said, "So while once we asked how we possibly can prevail over catastrophe, now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us?" Let us sing our children off to their classes this morning with words that you all know, but they're in your order of service anyway. Go now in peace, go now in peace, may the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace, may the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
A covenant is another word for a promise, and we make promises together in community about how we wish to live together based on our deepest values. On Sunday, it's a good time to remember that we have promises that guide us in how we treat each other and how we move through the world. So please join me in sharing together the covenant of this community. The words are printed in your order of service. We covenant together to create and nurture a culture of respect and kindness, and to engage in the spiritual and everyday practice of loving more generously. To this end, we will strive to be open, value differences, listen deeply, use kind language, speak our truths, work with conflict, seek humor and joy. Let's join our hearts and minds in the spirit of prayer and meditation with these words from poet Ashley M. Jones. Make small steps. In this wild place, there are signs of life everywhere. Sharp spaces too, the slip of a rain-glazed rock against my searching feet. Small steps, like prayers, each one a hope exhaled into the trees. Please, let me enter. Please, let me leave whole. There are too the tiny sounds of faraway birds, the safety in their promise of song, the puddle forming finally after longed-for rain, the golden butterfly against the cave dark. Maybe there are angels here too. What else can I call the crown of light atop the leaves? What else can I call my footsteps forward? Small, small, sure. Let's hold silence together. The reading this morning is taken from the writings of Aurora Levins Morales. Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorposts, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders. Teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep, here in the cruel shadow of empire. Say these words: another world is possible. Don't waver. Don't let despair sink its sharp teeth into the throat with which you sing. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Make them burn clear as a starry drinking gourd over the grim fog of exhaustion, and keep walking. Hold hands, share water, keep imagining so that we and the children of our children's children may live. Let's raise our voices together again in hymn number 146. We don't often like to sing in the minor key, but that particular hymn struck me with its combination of aspirational lyric and mournful music as exactly the right one for this morning. It is so good to be with you again. It is so good to be with you here in this beloved space. I will admit it would be even better to be with you today if we were gathered in a sense and emotional space of glad anticipation of the next things that will be unfolding on the national stage around us. Alas, that particular emotional tenor will have to wait for another time. Today, most of us, I suspect, are still feeling an uncomfortable mix of bafflement, dread, sadness, maybe anger, certainly exhaustion, emotionally and physically. It has been a long, grueling electoral season, and it ended with what still seems the unbelievable result of returning Trump to the presidency. Already this week that has just ended, with the daily drum roll of proposed cabinet appointments, we are getting quite a dose of what is ahead for us. A mix of chaos, corruption, and incompetence, with loyalty to the president apparently the key qualification. So it is already beginning. Trump and his advisors and his enablers have been very clear and very explicit about what they aspire to do. And we know already from past experience that he actually does mean what he says. So we know that even if this administration cannot accomplish everything they say they're setting out to do, a lot of damage will be done to individuals, to entire communities, to international relations, and to the already fraying fabric of our democracy. That said, it is also true that the future hasn't happened yet, and there is a lot that we don't know. We don't know all of the reasons why a slim majority of American voters elected Trump to the presidency again. My own take is that many of them were motivated by disillusionment, disinformation, and ongoing chronic economic distress, not by the most hateful dimensions of the rhetoric that we heard. It is possible that in the months and years ahead, we will see many of those people change their minds and join us in working for something different. We might discover that some of the guardrails of our democracy are sturdier than we knew, and we will watch with relief as they resist all attempts to dismantle them. We may find that there are some Republicans in Congress who, despite enormous pressure, will find the political courage to defend the Constitution and the rule of law. But in the meantime, we need to do all that we can to sustain ourselves and sustain each other for the long haul. Because no matter what happens, it is quite certain it will be a long haul. Like you, I know by heart the long list of things that we care about most deeply that are suddenly much more imperiled. But I have resisted the impulse to recite that long list of woe to myself like a litany of doom, which is something I did do for weeks the first time that Trump was elected. I resist reciting that litany of doom because it puts me into a downward spiral that makes it hard for me to be of use even to myself, much less to anyone else. So instead, I have been thinking about things like Brian Doyle's words that inspired my sermon title, this conviction that there is all around us, no matter what our circumstances, what Doyle called the web and weave of the incomprehensible, inexhaustible, inexplicable yes. This is his way of saying that no matter what happens in the world around us, there are sources of sustenance near at hand. It is an expression of faith. Faith in fundamental goodness and in our own capacity to keep moving toward that goodness. It's an affirmation of trust and love and of all of those things that can grow in an environment of trust and love, including our capacity to keep saying, we know who we are. We know what we stand for. We are here. We're not going anywhere. We have so many examples of this kind of steadfastness. All of the people who, under harsh circumstances, have devoted themselves, nevertheless, to saving lives, preserving the earth, expanding human rights. Some of them had to confront direct personal violence to do it. Some of them lived for years under repressive regimes and did not buckle. We know of people who worked for justice their entire lives under conditions that would make the most tough among us shiver and quail. These are the heroines of our history. They are the heroes of our present day, living in neighborhoods and cities and countryside all around us and all around the globe. I have been blessed in my life to see some of their courage and perseverance up close, and I receive their modeling as a gift beyond price. Just over 2 months ago, September 14th, a man named Juan Lopez was murdered in Honduras. He was an indigenous environmental activist in a gorgeous, fertile region known as the Bajua Juan. He was killed because his leadership was so effective. The community had begun to win victories over the mines that have been polluting their rivers and poisoning their land. As part of my work with the UU Service Committee, I had traveled to this region 4 times in the last couple of years before my retirement. And when Juan was killed in September, UUSC asked me if I would go back. So 2 months ago, with about 24 hours notice, I was back in Honduras, along with 5 other Americans from other organizations who also had ties to this community and who had also known and loved Juan Lopez. There isn't any way to mitigate the pain of a loss like this one. There is no way to erase the trauma of such a crime, especially when it comes, as this one did, as part of a pattern of violence that has gone on for decades. But there are ways to show up. Again and again, as we held our friends and their grief in Honduras, we found ourselves simply saying, "Aquí estamos." We are here. We're here with you. Fast forward some weeks to November 6th, the day after our election. Though I was tired and downhearted, what I found myself thinking about on Wednesday was Honduras. I was thinking about Juan Lopez, and not only about his courage, the way he knew all along that he was a target, and yet he never stopped and never laid down the work. I was thinking about everything else that bloomed in the space of resistance that he and everyone else there had created. I was thinking about his hilarious sense of humor, his playfulness, his profound faith, his love of the land and the people around him, his poetry, his vision, his imagination. I found myself thinking, if he could hold on to all of those things in his circumstances, all of those things that make us good humans, that make our lives worth living, if he could hold on to those things, if they can hold on to those things, then obviously so can I. So can we. And that afternoon, that day after our election, I started getting text messages from this community, from these people in Honduras, condolence messages, and saying back to me, "Aquí estamos." We're here. We're with you. We are not facing anything like the perils faced by justice work in rural Honduras. But we need the same kinds of things that the people there need. We need to grow our own capacities for resilience and courage. We need to hold on to the conviction that a brighter and more just world for everyone is possible. We need to hold lots of space for joy, poetry, music, laughter, dance, playfulness, so that discouragement will not become despair. We need to ground ourselves in the incomprehensible, inexhaustible, inexplicable yes. As the days unfurl, we are going to learn all kinds of ways to do this. We will learn new ways, as is always the case, as we face new challenges. But as a starter list, I recommend 3 things that seem to me to be the most essential for my own resilience and for girding my loins facing the future. First, we have to strengthen our muscles in managing anxiety and fear. It might be anxiety about our livelihood, our reputation, our physical safety. It might be free-floating anxiety. But whatever it is, we need to remember that fear is the most powerful tool that any would-be autocrat or fascist can deploy. Fear is a poison that paralyzes us. It is easily spread. We can infect each other with it like a virus. We can infect our whole community with it, and we can catch it from each other. It can grow, if we allow it to, until it dominates our view of the world and our capacity to act. Already, well before the inauguration in January, it seems as though grenades are beginning to go off, and it will keep on feeling that way in every direction. The onslaught is designed to make us feel a little bit like cartoon characters running around from one explosion to another with ridiculous, inadequate buckets of water. We are going to feel afraid for ourselves, for people we love, and for our communities. Our job in these circumstances is not to be fearless, which would be impossible. Our job is to keep from being controlled by our fear. There is not one specific recipe for this that works for everyone, but there are lots of things that can help. And it starts by not being afraid of fear, but by looking at it closely. Each of us has the capacity to study how we experience anxiety, how we feel it in our bodies, and how it changes our capacity to think and to plan. Notice the ways that it shows up for you, and then make use of the practices that let you breathe deliberately, that let you slow your heart when it's racing. Touch the earth, meditate, take 20 slow, conscious breaths. Sing a song as loudly as you can. Do yoga stretches, recite radical poems, go dancing, have 6 friends over for dinner and a board game. Do whatever works for you, but know your fear. Make friends with it so that when it shows up, you can say, oh, here you are again. I recognize you. This is how we learn to keep it from dragging us around or taking up too much space in our minds. Second, we need to dig deeper into community. Or maybe we could say we need to dig deeper community. We need all of the places where we can see each other, laugh and cry together, physically touch one another. Zoom gatherings are great in their own way. They can help, especially if we're not mobile or when we need to see faces across great distances. But whenever possible, I hope that we will be in the same room with people that we love and trust. We need to find ways to grow those spaces so that there are more and more people we love and trust. This is not meant to make a bunker mentality where we hunker down with a small circle of people we already know and try to wait things out. It's the opposite, a way to constantly grow and expand the spaces in which we create the life-affirming world that we want. The great organizer and justice activist Grace Lee Boggs said, "We never know how our small activities will affect others through the invisible fabric of our connectedness. In this exquisitely connected world, it's never a question of critical mass. It's always about critical connection." This kind of powerful and expansive community requires us to look at what we sometimes call our comfort zones and to notice that these are changeable. We can decide to make them bigger. We can make our comfort zones more ample so that we have more freedom of movement as our communities of trust and love expand and diversify. They need to include people who are different from us in faith or age or culture or background or economic status or political priorities, but who hold our core values about prioritizing justice and freedom and love. Spend time together, create intimacy and connection, and see where these networks of support also become networks of mutual aid, helping to protect those who are the most vulnerable in our communities. In my own case, in Boston, I am part of a network already of activists and church communities working with migrants and asylum seekers. First line of attack. Most of these people are from Haiti. They have, quite literally, no viable country to which they could return. If they are deported, we can be pretty sure that many of them will die. Our networks of love and trust are dedicated to doing all that we can to prevent this harm. Which leads to my third ingredient for resilience. Imagine together new ways to take action. Creative, nonviolent action to put sand in the gears of destructive machinery. My friend Malin recently said to me that it is easy these days to feel too small to have any impact, believing that we are each like just a grain of sand on an immense beach. One grain among 8 billion. One grain of sand is meaningless, he said, unless it's in my eye, in which case a single grain of sand can matter quite a lot. In our reading, Levin Morales says, keep imagining. This is essential now because we have to imagine and invent new ways to take action in the face of threats most of us have never faced before. Our old habits of protest and demonstrations, our old ways of expressing indignation or trying to pull on the levers of power will not be effective. We have to find new ways to slow and stop the machinery that will otherwise grind up people's lives. There are powerful examples of this throughout our entire history in this country, in the struggles for union rights, the struggles for women's suffrage, for emancipation, and in the civil rights movement, among many others. One brilliant example that I hold to, you all know well, which is the Montgomery bus boycott. The face of that boycott was Rosa Parks, who broke an unjust law, committed civil disobedience, when she chose to stay on the bus and not move. But the real power of that boycott was not an act of civil disobedience. The boycotters broke no laws at all. What they did was withdraw their consent. The boycott was a massive withdrawal of consent from a particular pillar of an oppressive system. And when enough people withdrew their consent, that pillar crumbled, and it brought down the entire edifice of Jim Crow. I do not know at this point in time what the right pillar will be toward which we turn our attention, or the place in the gears where throwing our sand will bring the machinery to a halt. But I do know they're there in multiple places. It will be through our capacity to imagine together that we will find where to act, and our actions will help change these next chapters of history that have not yet been written. Alice Walker once said, "The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any." Let's not make that mistake. If we manage our fear, if we strengthen and expand communities of love and trust, if we help each other imagine our way into new forms of action, we have much more power than we know. So from Evans Morales again, escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Make them burn clear as a starry drinking gourd, and keep on moving forward. Amen. Let's raise our voices in song again. Hymn number 34. Please join me in the words that we recite to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. In these words of benediction from the poet Dion Brand, revolutions do not happen outside of you. They happen in the vein. They change you, and you change yourself. You wake up in the morning changing, You say, "This is the human being I want to be." You are making yourself for the future, and you do not even know the extent of it when you begin, but you have a hint, a taste in your throat of the warm elixir of the possible. Go in peace, believe in peace, create peace. Amen.